Welcome to Her Imprint, part of the Impressions Exchange. I'm Denise Gustafson, your host. This podcast celebrates the remarkable women who are transforming the printing industry. We'll explore their journeys, from challenges to triumphs, and share the stories that leave a lasting imprint. Today, I'm welcoming Keila Ariaga. She's General and Account Manager with AlphaGraphics Loveland. So Keila, welcome.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Thanks for spending a little bit of time with me today. To get us started, can you tell us a little bit about AlphaGraphics in Loveland?
So, AlphaGraphics in Loveland has been in business for 35 years now. This will be our 35th anniversary. AlphaGraphics as a whole has been in business for more than 55 years. I've been with AlphaGraphics here in Loveland for going on my 7th year right now.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I've been in the printing industry for 10 years.
Awesome. So what made you get started in the printing industry?
It's a funny story. I just fell into it. I came out of graduating college with a communication studies degree, and I was working retail. I didn't want to do that anymore, and I had a friend that was a graphic designer for a local print company in Greeley, Colorado. They needed a customer service rep, and she asked me if I wanted to do it. I said, yes, I will apply for that position because that sounds a lot better than working retail for a long term.
Definitely.
Fell in love with the industry after that.
What were you planning to be when you went to college? You obviously had some kind of inkling, maybe, of what you wanted to be when you grew up. So what was that initially?
I will say, starting from college, initially I was hoping to have a career in marketing as well as public relation was my main goal. So I will say I'm not that far off.
Very
I
true.
do, yeah, I do help with like a lot of marketing. I take care of our marketing locally for centers, so that's really nice. But it did veer off a little bit from what I was expecting.
That happens. Once you get sucked in, though, I think anything can happen, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So what made you stay? Was there an aha moment for you that you just thought, this is my thing, this is my place, these are my people?
That's a very good question. I'd say the aha moment was I was very fortunate to be trained underneath some coworkers that had been in the printing industry for 30 plus years. One coworker actually was born into the printing industry. His parents owned their own printing company. And so they really showed me kind of the process and nitty gritty of how the printing presses worked, one color, two color presses, and developed a love after. I don't think a lot of people really know how much goes into that one printed piece, especially when the industry first started. And it really sucks me in with how many details and how much artistry goes into it as well.
Mhm. It's interesting that you say that people don't understand what goes into print.
Yes.
There's a lot of misconceptions out there about what print is, what the role that women can play in the industry. We probably heard it all. It's old. It doesn't
Mhm.
exist. It's dying. Who needs print? Everything's going to be digital. We're not going to have any of these print things anymore.
Yep.
How do you combat or challenge some of those assumptions that we see in the world at large?
With hearing that print is dying or it is gonna go away eventually, it'll become obsolete. I tell a lot of those people the type of jobs, the type of orders, the type of projects that I handle on a day-to-day basis for our clients, and tell them that honestly, I see that is far from the truth, that it's still a really thriving industry. It has shifted a little bit, but it is still super thriving. And I feel like, especially after COVID happened, I did see a big uptick in direct mailers, postcard mailers, because for many people, the only human interaction that they had during COVID was just going to their mail and seeing what type of letters or what type of marketing materials were sent to them, and that was really their only interactions. I feel like that kind of brought it back to life a little bit. In addition to my generation, I'm a millennial, and we have that fondness for old type of interactions, and that does include print. My generation, I feel like, is bringing it back a little bit and being able to have a little bit of that personalness that you get with print.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that because when you look at some of the reports that I've seen, you look at some of the boomers, they love print.
Mhm.
Obviously, they're not digital natives by any stretch of the imagination. You're lucky that they can actually use, in some cases, computers and email and whatnot. It's just not something that they've really used a lot of. But then you get down to some of the other generations, millennials, and even past you, even some of the younger folks that are digital natives, and how much those generations are interested in print, especially the tactile nature of it. If you have different foils or different coatings on it, they
Mhm.
actually really like that because they're trying to lessen their screen time because that's what they always grew up with. It's always interesting to say, oh, yeah, that study that I read, that was actually right.
Yeah.
So, when it comes to the print industry and your career, were there challenges for you in learning it and trying to develop and grow into a leadership position? You're the general and account manager for the AlphaGraphics Loveland. So, from start to where you are now, that's a big gap in education and knowledge, I imagine.
Yes, it is. I definitely had some trials and had to work out some errors and whatnot
I'll
throughout
do.
my career. Yeah, it did take me a while to learn the industry, but once I got a hunger, so to speak, for it and appreciation for it, made it a lot easier. But there's definitely a lot of things to keep in mind, things you have to learn, especially when you're placing an order, making sure that everything that you put in makes sense for production and the production team so that they get that order put in properly. I definitely had to figure things out. I've gone through almost every single sales position that you could have at a print company. So that was a little bit of some trial and error right there, figuring out what fits best for me and my personalities.
And sometimes you have to learn by trial and error and see really what works.
Yeah, definitely do. So
So, I'm guessing there's some stories in there.
yeah, maybe a little bit. Yeah.
That's good, but now the question is, how did you learn? Did you just learn by doing? You mentioned that there was some mentorship with some of the other people in the business that had been in print. Was that primarily your way of really grasping the technology? Was really just working at it in the job?
Yeah. It was mostly just a lot of that mentorship. It didn't really click for me until I was able to see an order that I had put in go from my hands all the way through production to where it's finished, packaged, and about to be delivered to the client that it really clicked for me. So it was definitely a lot of mentorship, especially nowadays. There's not like a schooling per se for being in the print industry and learning that way. Not that I know of, at least. It's really just on the job, which can be frustrating sometimes, but is the fast way to learn.
Definitely. A lot of the vocational schools or the tech schools, there's some, but there's not as many as when I started in the industry in the late 90s. There was a lot more. Obviously, there's still some big ones. There's still Clemson, there's Cal Poly. There's a couple of the big name schools that you think of, RIT, that you think of when you're talking about print. But even like when I look back on when I was in junior high school, I had to go and do a shop class that taught me how to use power tools, and they had a one-color press, so I learned how to set type on a one-color press,
Oh, that's cool.
but I don't know how many schools are introducing kids to that kind of technology, even if it's just for fun, just to learn something different. That's not
Yeah.
what made me go into print, but it was one of those things that I still had a background that I understood what was involved with creating. We did like notepads and other things, how
Right.
to actually go through that whole process. Gave me a different appreciation for it, that's for sure.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. It's definitely something that is underappreciated nowadays, I feel like.
Mhm. Now, you've been in the industry for 10 years, so you are relatively young in your career path.
Mhm.
So, one question that I've asked, like, a lot of women that maybe have a couple years on you, 30, 40 years on you, they've been in the industry a long time. So, they've seen a lot of changes in regards to how flexible companies are becoming in terms of work-life balance. Or for you, you're just starting out in your career, but also at the same time, you might be starting out with a family and getting married. That might be a path for you as well. What challenges are you facing when it comes to the pull of work versus family and personal life?
Yeah. So I am working through that right now as we speak, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. I have a husband that we've been together for 15 years now. And I have a adorable little daughter that's 2 years old. I am currently trying to figure out that balance to work life because it is hard. I feel specifically in the printing industry, you have to be pretty competitive sometimes in
Mhm.
sales, a little bit cutthroat sometimes. You have to definitely have ambition for it. And I do have a lot of ambition for it. So it is hard to dial it back just a little bit, just so I have that time so I can be there for my daughter, and be there for my husband at the end of the day. I'm not just spending all my time just in printing. And that's definitely something that is very hard to do.
Are there tips or tricks that are helping you to manage those pulls of attention?
Yeah. So right now, I have been working on prioritizing what is really needed, the importance of certain clients, what projects need my attention versus others that I can delegate. That's a big thing that is definitely needed to have that work life balance is knowing when to delegate other projects to coworkers if you have that option. And that's part of it, in addition to having those hard lines for yourself to say, it's time for me to leave.
Mhm.
It's not going anywhere. No one's dying over it. It will be okay for me to leave. And that's something that is definitely needed and is very helpful to put that line down for yourself. Knowing what you are willing to do. Are you willing to work from home past those hours? That's certainly something that I've had to do recently this past week. Once my daughter was asleep, working a little bit so I can stay on top of the projects that we have for our clients.
Yeah, and so you can get to a certain point, so when you do start the next day, you're at a good place to keep the project moving forward.
Absolutely.
But yeah, that's a lot of what I've heard from other women too, is a lot of times they had to after bedtime, they were back on their computers, but at the same time, there's also a measure of guilt that they always talk about too.
Yeah.
So you're feeling it.
Yes, I am. And I think it's a little bit unfair because I feel like women feel it more than mothers do versus
Mhm,
fathers. Just because of our culture, especially with the printing industry culture, it's embedded that women should be staying home anyway with the kids. And so there is that level of guilt of leaving your daughter or leaving your child at home while you work on your career. And I always hear it from people like, you can't have it both ways. I'm like, but men have it both ways. So why can't I?
mhm. I think a lot of the younger generations are finding in some ways there's a lot more partnership in regards to childcare
Mhm.
than maybe there were 10, 20 years ago.
Yeah, exactly what I'm seeing. I'm very lucky to have a wonderful husband that loves our child and is willing to put a little bit more hours in taking care of her so that I can be at work and be able to further my career. He is very understanding. And yeah, I would say it's more a 50-50, maybe some days more of a 40-60 on his part to take care of our child. And that's really nice to have someone that can support you like that.
Mhm. And the industry as a whole, I think, has become even more understanding and flexible in some ways. Honestly, there's probably some positions, like the people that are running the presses, you can't really take them home with you,
Right.
but there's other positions in sales, in customer service that can be a little bit more flexible with schedules, or maybe there's split shifts. Somebody could take on a shift if something happens. That I
Right.
think is becoming a little bit more flexible across the industry as a whole.
Yeah, for sure. I think that there is definitely the flexibility. Something that we do here is everyone's shifts are at different times. So we can mix it up a little bit. Everyone has their choice of if they need to come in a little bit earlier and then finish their day out more towards 4:30, they can definitely do that. Or if they want to come in later and stay a little bit later, if that works for their work-life balance, we have that option. And it's been really nice to have that flexibility sometimes.
Mhm. Because life happens, kids get sick, things come up.
Hmm.
So to have a team that's also willing to be a little bit flexible with everybody else, that helps.
Yeah, it does.
So one thing interesting I'm gonna go back to that you said is in printing, women need to be a little bit aggressive and forthright.
Hmm.
But at the same time, sometimes that has bad connotations
Yep.
because you have men that are aggressive and forthright and he's a go-getter. He's a great salesperson, whatnot. And then you have a woman that might do the same thing and she might be called a bitch or something else along those lines. You hear those terminology. Have you encountered that in terms of, because you say, you have to be aggressive in some ways.
Yeah. Yeah. I personally haven't really encountered that. Part of it is my personality. I like being aggressive or go getter, but I live my life, at least professionally, kill them with kindness.
Hmm.
I'm a very positive person. So I always try to be super positive, but be exceptionally nice. You can be aggressive without being nasty to people. So that's not how I live by it. So I haven't really gotten a whole lot of that, "Oh, you're being too aggressive," or anything like that, at least so far in my career. But I definitely have seen it with a lot of my coworkers that are women that were told that, especially the women that I've known that have worked in production. Like, they have had a lot of different people telling them that, "No, you can't do that. You're not strong enough. Oh, here, let me help you with that stack of paper," just because they're women.
Hmm.
So I have definitely seen, especially at the beginning of being in the industry, I've heard a lot of those stories. I've seen it myself, which is, I don't know, it shocked me to be honest, just because I didn't really think of that really being part of the workplace anymore.
Hmm. But
But
it's
it
there.
is. Yep.
How do we change that?
Getting more women in the industry. There's not that many of us out there, as I'm sure. So getting more of us out there, I think definitely can change it. Having that conversation with printing owners to not tolerate that type of behavior in the workplace is also something that can help change. I've had that conversation. I've been with now two owners, and that was one of my first conversations with both. If we have a client that comes in or have an employee that comes in, this is what I'm not willing to tolerate. You should not tolerate it either,
Hmm.
or else I'm not going to be here. I'm not going to stay with you. And luckily, I've had both owners that were 100% behind me on that. We had to fire clients before because they did not treat the women in our workplace with respect. And they were okay with doing that.
And that's hard to do, to say notice to a paying client.
Yes. Yeah, it is. But I think you do have to have that line of respect because you let them walk all over your customer service rep or whoever they're dealing with. They're going to do that for everyone.
Mhm. What happens when the problem is the traditional old school old boys network owner?
Ooh, that is a good question.
Because there's some of them out there, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah, there is. Sometimes with that, you have to go with the route of killing them with kindness, showing them that prove that you are supposed to be there, that you deserve to be there. Because, yeah, I've definitely seen those this is a boys club type of printing owners before. And it's funny because they are also the ones that complain about not keeping employees and having employee retention. And to those people, I just have to say, if you're nicer to your women employees, you'll be able to keep them.
Shocking, right?
Yeah, so crazy.
You treat employees badly, they leave, and then you complain that you're not able to retain employees.
Yep,
It's hard for some of them to look inwardly.
yep, it is.
That's how
It
they've
is.
always done it. That's how they were taught maybe in some cases.
Mhm.
But I do think the industry is getting better as a whole,
It is.
but there's still some of those outliers, and it's tough for women no matter what.
Yeah, yeah, it is. I being a woman in the print industry now that has a little bit of power, I try to look for when we hire people, other women that I can hire that deserve that position or whatnot, and been lucky enough to be able to keep at least a 50% split. Sometimes there's been even a little bit more so towards within our team, more women focused
Mhm.
than and it just happened to work out that way, which is great. Women that are leaders backing up and supporting other women in the industry, I think will help.
Definitely. So then, of course, the question of the day is, how can we get more women in the industry?
Teaching it to everyone that we can, which is I know is really hard to do,
Mhm.
versus saying it. But just the more people, more women that are in the industry that just show how much they love the industry, how much passion they have for it, and just showing that to other women, I think it in the door a little bit more, applying for those positions, and then getting more women in the industry at that point and having, I think, that hard line for yourself, especially women in leadership,
Mhm.
telling your owner, even if it's a boys club owner, telling them this is unacceptable. We cannot hire this person, even though they're well qualified for this production position or this sales position, just because of them being women. And when you call them out on it, they will backpedal. And at that point, you are at a position where you can work on them a little bit more and they have to say yes at that point.
Mhm. Because you're bringing them the facts. They have the skills, they have the merit. We're not talking about gender at this point. We're talking about just the
Yeah.
basic skills that they have.
Yeah.
They meet the requirements for this position. They're a good fit. They're a good fit culturally. They're a good fit with skills. What's the problem, right? So you have 10 years in. Where do you want to be in 10 years?
I have thought about this in the past year quite a lot just because I've had a few people, other AlphaGraphics owners, ask me if I wanted to own my own AlphaGraphics or own my own printing business. And I never really thought about it until I've had like a few people tell me, like, hey, you would be good at this, being an owner. I didn't really see it for myself, but possibly opening my own AlphaGraphics, my own print shop down the road would be awesome. I think I would really enjoy it. So that's where I see myself going.
Baby steps, you'll get there.
Yeah.
So, my favorite question, and the one that I always keep for the end, is knowing what you know now, your history, how you got into the industry, what you've learned, in the years that you've been in the industry. If you were just starting today, walking in all fresh-faced and new, what advice would you give yourself?
Ooh, the advice I would give myself would probably be don't get discouraged with not knowing everything all at once, because it is super frustrating to feel like, especially in training, feel like you know a good amount, and then all of a sudden someone slaps you in the face with a brand new project, a brand new problem that they have, and you have to figure out the solution, and you don't know what it is. So I think that would be my advice. Don't get frustrated with not knowing everything all at once. It's a learning process. I still learn new things even today, being in there 10 years in the industry. And I'm sure there's women out there that would also agree that they've been in 20 or 30 years in the industry, that there's brand new processes that are coming out. There's brand new capabilities coming out. And so you're learning every single day.
Definitely are, and a lot of women, you're right, they say the same thing, is they're continually learning. Not only from a technology standpoint, we've seen the changes in technology over the years, but
Hmm.
now you look at AI and how is AI going to impact businesses? It's
Yeah.
continually learning about all these new things that are coming out, even if it's not specifically in the printing industry. Like I said, AI was not developed for the printing industry, but how can that impact what we're doing and how we're working?
Yes, absolutely.
It's a big question I think everybody has at this point is how is AI going to impact our businesses?
Yeah. And it's getting interesting. I've heard it a lot from our graphic designer and other graphic designers that they're wary of what AI is going to be doing in the future of it.
Yeah, and there's different ways to look at it. It's some great tools to be able to use, but then
Oh, yeah.
how is it being used?
Yep.
What's the motive behind some of the tools that are being used? And that we
Yep.
don't have control over.
Yep.
And then, of course, with AI, you also have the questions of legalities. How is it in
Mhm.
regards to if a client creates something? Is the print shop responsible? Do you have to be transparent about what you're using it for or any of those things? A lot of it's still not clear.
Yep. Yep. It is. It's a lot of up in the air right now, but I'm hoping that it will be used positively for the industry, not to take over positions or used in those legality reasonings of trying to steal artwork or steal from clients or from
Mhm.
designers.
Yeah, that's a whole brave new world we're gonna still have to figure out.
Yep.
Kayla, it was a pleasure chatting with you today. Thank you for taking a little bit of time. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to talk with you.
Thanks again. Thank you for joining us on this journey to celebrate and amplify the voices of women in the printing industry. If you have a story to share or know someone whose journey deserves to be highlighted, we'd love to hear from you. Together, let's continue inspiring and empowering the next generation of leaders. Until next time, keep leaving your imprint. This is Her Imprint. See you soon.